Hello, I'm doing a book review, and the book I want to review is The Informers by Bret Easton Ellis. Now, The Informers is Bret Easton Ellis' fourth novel, and this was published in 1994. Now, Bret Easton Ellis, of course, is the author of books like Less Than Zero and American Psycho. Now, this is the third book I've read from him. I've also read Less Than Zero and American Psycho, and I have to say that, though I enjoyed this book, I didn't like it as much as Less Than Zero or American Psycho, but, I would still definitely recommend this book. Now, The Informers is actually a collection of short stories, but each of the stories in this book actually interlock with each other, and, like, basically they're all set in the same world, and, like, each of the stories connect to each other. Like, for example, characters who are only briefly mentioned in one story or only minor characters in one story will end up being the main characters in the next story, and so essentially, like, they all connect to each other. Now, the stories in this book are Bruce Calls from Mulholland, At the Still Point, The Up Escalator, In the Islands, Sitting Still, Water from the Sun, Discovering Japan, Letters from LA, Another Gray Area, The Secrets of Summer, The Fifth Wheel, On the Beach, and At the Zoo with Bruce. Now, in this book, I would say my least favorite stories in the book would probably have to be Water from the Sun. I didn't really care for that story. I don't know, that one didn't really do it for me, and On the Beach, I also didn't really care for that much. Like, I mean, it was alright, but I guess at the time I read it, I don't know, for some reason, that story didn't really do it for me either, even though the overall premise of the story is actually pretty good. That one I didn't really care for, but in this book, my favorite stories would have to be At the Still Point, The Up Escalator, In the Islands, Letters from LA, The Secrets of Summer, and The Fifth Wheel. Now, the story At the Still Point is actually narrated by the character of Tim Price, who is a character from Bret Easton Ellis' other novel, American Psycho, because all of Bret Easton Ellis' books are supposed to be set in the same world, so, the character of Tim Price is from American Psycho, and he's the narrator of this story, and this story is supposed to take place before the events of American Psycho, but basically this story At the Still Point is basically it's about Tim Price and his friends who are having lunch at this restaurant, and they get into kind of a conversation about a friend of theirs who died a year before, and really what I kind of got out of the story was really only one of them is really, like, mourning this friend of theirs. The other ones are just like, I thought he was an asshole and stuff like that, and really the only one who really seems to miss this friend of theirs is really only one of them. Like, I forgot the character's name, but the other characters just don't really seem to care that much, and I don't know, I really enjoyed that story. Another story I liked was The Up Escalator, which was, basically that story, it didn't really have a plot line, but for some reason I really enjoyed it, and it's narrated by this woman. They never really tell you what this woman's name is, but she's the mother of a character named Graham who was in the story At the Still Point, and and really, like, in the story it talks about how she's having an affair with this kid named Martin, who really isn't much older than her son, and her son's like, I want to say her son's like 18 or 19, and, that one I really enjoyed, and in that story they actually briefly mention the characters of Blair and Julian from Less Than Zero, because, like I said, all of Bret Easton Ellis' books are kind of set in the same world. Another story I really liked was In the Islands, which is about the father of Tim Price, and basically, Tim Price's father, he takes Tim, to Hawaii on vacation, and in the story, like, you kind of see him kind of try to, reestablish relations with Tim, but it doesn't really work out. I really enjoyed that story. Another story I really liked was Letters from LA, which is about this girl who is sending letters to a character named Sean, who is a guy she knew in college, and and like in the story, the whole story is told in the form of letters, and she's sending letters to this guy named Sean, and he of course isn't writing her back, and the character of Sean that she's writing letters to is, I believe, supposed to be the character of Sean Bateman, who was from Bret Easton Ellis' other novel, The Rules of Attraction, and he's also the brother of the character of Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. Then, probably my absolute favorite story in this book was The Secrets of Summer, which, that story is actually a vampire story, and basically it's about this man named, I believe the man's name is Jamie, and he is either a vampire or he just believes he's a vampire, and basically the story is about him, like, going to different clubs and picking up girls and then killing them, and in the story you realize that he's part of a group of people who are either vampires or just believe themselves to be vampires, but that one I really enjoyed. And then another one of my favorite stories was The Fifth Wheel, which is basically about a group of people who kidnap this kid, and they're planning on killing this kid. Yeah, The Informers I really enjoyed. I actually really like this book, despite the fact that there were a few stories that I didn't really care for that much. It's a book I would recommend, though. Yeah. Now, Bret Easton Ellis, I will say that his writing style isn't really for everybody, if you've read any of his other books, I would recommend checking this book out. So, yeah, that's my review on The Informers by Bret Easton Ellis, and bye.